Welcome to another edition of International Soccer Break. I'm your host, Sahil, here with Rahi and here with Chris Brown, which means, of course, today we'll be covering a little Reggae Boys, doing the Copa America Group B preview. If you all are enjoying these previews, please subscribe to the channel. But, boys, let's get into this and let's start off with Group B, a little Group B preview action. Let's see what we got here, boys.
Yeah, this is the group of life in many ways. This is a group where everyone can compete. I'm not sure who the favorite here is because these teams can all play with each other. And aside from Mexico, you have to say all three of these teams, Ecuador, Venezuela, Jamaica, are all in some of the best moments they've ever been in their history. So who's the favorite here, Chris? I don't have an idea.
I still think Mexico is a favorite, even if they're not as clear a favorite as maybe they would be in tournaments past. But you're right. I don't think that the gap between them and Ecuador, Venezuela, even Jamaica is as wide as maybe it would have been if we played this tournament 4, 8, 10 years ago.
And another thing is that Mexico traditionally plays well in this tournament. And also, they have the home field advantage in certain ways. It's in the U.S., but we know that Mexico has that huge support, which plays a big role. No matter what moment they're in, with that support in this kind of tournament, you have to think that they'll do well.
I think this is the hardest group in the tournament. I honestly do.
Really?
So yeah, I think that every team is equally matched in this group, and let's go through the teams right now. But I do think this is a lot tougher group than people think about. I mean, Ecuador has been very strong recently. Venezuela very strong recently. So and Jamaica also. So I think there's a lot to talk about. Let's start with the favorites, Mexico.
Mhm.
Right, it's a younger team now. He hasn't taken Ochoa. He hasn't taken some of the staples. Henry Martin not there. Raul Jimenez not there. It's interesting.
It is an interesting team that way, and it's an interesting moment for Mexico in general, where we a bit void of those superstars that we've seen in the past. You have to say their best player is probably Santi Jimenez, right? And he sometimes doesn't play that many minutes for this team. So it's very interesting without the clear talisman. Maybe Chucky Lozano is the talisman, but Mexico, in my lifetime, this is as devoid of talent on the Mexican side as I've seen. But we've always seen that in big tournaments, they find a way to play their best. And I don't expect anything different from Mexico here. These are technical players. They're in a bad moment, but I think they'll find a way to get the best out of themselves.
You talk about this being a younger team. I think that the fans of El Tri have been clamoring for them to inject this new life
Yeah,
into the team, to
yeah.
kind of move away from Ochoa, from Martin, from some of the other players that they feel like have maybe been stagnating the progress that they could have made in getting past the wall that they seem to hit in the World Cup. So I do think that this team does have a potential to kind of jump out and seize control of the group. I still would put them as a favorite, but you're right. There are a lot of players that haven't been necessarily tested in these moments. So we'll see what that ultimately translates to when you're playing against teams across different federations that you don't necessarily have the level of familiarity or experience dealing with.
I think it's a big risk because the thing here is you guys both seem very confident about Mexico being the favorite. I'm sure we'll give them the favorite tag just based on their history and sort of the team
Yeah, that's
itself and
what it
what
is,
comes with
history.
that. But this is a completely different team in a lot of facets, and they're going against teams that are in good right now, good form. So and I think that is something that is going to be difficult for this team to deal with.
But on paper, you'd have to say, despite the less talented Mexico team that we have, you'd still take them over Jamaica, over Ecuador, over Venezuela. Maybe Ecuador, that's the toughest game for them, but you'd still say they're favorites in all those games, wouldn't you?
They're their favorites, but let's talk a little bit about Venezuela because this is a team now that is in fourth place in
Yeah.
CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying. Quick shout out to Daniela Loco Romero, who's out there, who's our Venezuela expert off the scene. So he basically filled in. He's a proud Venezuelan. But, La Vino Tinto it's a strong side right now, and they got some good players. You know, Soltedo. They got Herrera plays in Girona. They've got some good players, and they're playing well right now.
And you want to talk about history? This team has history in this competition as well. Always does well. Always manages to get out of the group stage. They had the one blip in the last Copa America because of COVID, and they had a lot of players missing. But this is a team that always punches above their weight in this tournament. And now they're in a moment where they're punching above their weight, or maybe that is their weight in World Cup qualifying, fourth in World Cup qualifying. They've been excellent. This is a great run of form, a great moment for Venezuela, Chris.
I always say about Venezuela, and I would be interested to see what they looked like in a different federation, because it's tough when you got every third game against a Brazil or an Argentina or Uruguay. I really wonder that if they would have made a World Cup already, if they didn't have to go against those world beaters every single game or every other game. But the likes of Machis, Rondon, I mean, they've been in good form lately, scored goals in these qualifiers for the World Cup. So yeah, that's a team that it speaks to the depth of this group, that they have this level of quality, and they're in good form right now.
Yeah, they've had a couple good results against Brazil as well.
100%. Rondon's still leading the line. 36, I think he must be at this point, but still going strong.
It's a team. It's definitely a team to be reckoned with. And then just along the way in South America, some close neighbors of theirs, so to speak, is Ecuador. So you have another team. This team obviously stacked with some stars, and overall, you saw it in the World Cup, and since then, it's a difficult team to play against.
Very difficult. It's funny. There's some similarities with them in Venezuela. For Rondon, you have Ener Valencia here, right, leading the line for Ecuador. Similar kind of older veteran player, but they're so young in a lot of ways in important places in the midfield. Caicedo, who struggled a bit initially at Chelsea's, maybe coming to his own now. Very, very important player in defensive midfield. So there's a lot of young, good defenders, defensive players on this team. They're very difficult to score against. They don't give up a lot of goals. They're very athletic. We saw them in the World Cup. They really should have gotten out of the group. I'm not sure quite how they didn't in the end, but they were very impressive. This is an Ecuadorian team that has gone from strength to strength, from World Cup to World Cup qualifying. It's just a good moment. Good Ecuadorian players, good young players. They're on the rise.
Yeah. Chris, I'm sure this is a game, the Jamaica-Ecuador game, where I'm sure you're going in and you're thinking it's going to be a tough match, So
I will, and I will actually be live at this game. I got the tickets to head to Vegas in Elysian, so I'll be able to see firsthand probably Valencia, Caicedo, and the rest of them. But yeah, I mean, they're again playing well, just like Venezuela, and yeah, they'd be back in another World Cup if the standings ended today. So, I mean, just tough group all around.
Yeah. Okay. So now we'll finally get into, for all the Reggae Boys fans out there, and we'll let Chris take over the show in a second. But the first thing I wanted to start off with is just, Chris, how do you feel about the chances of Jamaica getting out of this group? I just want to start there, and then we can back into sort of what happens with the team and players and all that kind of stuff. But I just want to ask very blatantly, like, do you think they're going to get out first?
I mean, they need to work on getting their first goals. They haven't scored a goal in Copa America first. They also haven't secured a point or win yet. So I do think it is difficult to say that a team that has yet to accomplish any of those three things in the prior two versions of the tournament is then going to be able to take that leap to then make it out of the group stage. That said, if there was ever a team that had some of the talent and ability to do that, it's probably this one. And if there was ever a coach that had the ability to take an underdog team and hoist them into a prominent position where they pull off the upset as an underdogs, it's probably Coach Hallgrimsson.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's talk specifically, right? Heading into this tournament, how you guys feeling about the team as a whole? And then each of these specific matchups, what do you think is the key?
So just real quickly, I think Halgrimsson is, as you said, he's a great coach and a great tournament coach. Think about what he's done with Iceland. I think he's a very savvy operator. So I think that's a big X factor for this Jamaica team going into this tournament. I think he'll have a game plan for everyone. They understand how to play their opponents. It'll be very interesting, Chris. I think let's not ignore the fact, as you brought up, the coach may play a huge role for this team.
I think he will, but I do think they're going to be ceding a lot of possession. I do think that they're going to have to work on getting some moments of brilliance in the counterattack. But, that's probably the game plan, trying to use their depth at the fullback and wingback positions. That's the deepest area on their depth chart as a team, and that is their, I think, greatest strength, and trying to find ways to get turnovers in opportunistic situations and pounce on the opponent when they do.
So every 100% finish chance, but every game you see every game as an opportunity to take points, right? Because if you look at these games, right, you can't be like, oh, we're gonna win against Venezuela or Ecuador and then go for a draw against Mexico. I mean, you got to look at each game as a chance to get points, right?
No, I think, as you guys said, this is a very closely contested group. I don't think that you're going to have any clear results until the third match day, as far as the deciding who's going to make it through. I don't think you'll know until day 3 going into those games. Probably, like you said, every team will be in a position where they could potentially advance going into that third game. So you try and take whatever points wherever you can get them.
Yeah. So guys, who gets through for you guys? Which 2 teams make it? Right.
I'm going local. Mexico and Jamaica. I think those 2 come in. Mexico takes first. Jamaica getting second in the group. It's funny. You'd say on form, on talent, maybe not the 2 favorites in this group, but I think that being in the U.S., being it a CONCACAF type Copa America, I'm going with the CONCACAF teams.
Chris.
That would probably be my guess too, because I do think Mexico's the favorite for the group. But I'll mix it up a little bit. I'll go with Venezuela and Jamaica.
Look at that. Venezuela and Jamaica. I do also think that it's going to be a different team, and I'll round out the house, and I'll say Ecuador and Jamaica make it through. I think Mexico is going to slip up. I honestly think that they we'll have a separate video just on the Mexican national team's chances in the Copa America, but that's who I think is going to get through. Let's see what happens. We have all the possibilities on the table. Okay, quickly, we like to end it with this fun segment where we go through each of the countries and say who is the most famous person as now, not in the history, for this country. So let's start with Venezuela. And this one's interesting because I attended John Williams' concert last summer at the Hollywood Bowl. And interestingly enough, my pick for this was the person who was at the LA Phil, the former conductor of the LA Phil, Gustavo Dudamel. So that's my Gustavo Dudamel, I should say. That's my pick. Good.
That's a great one. I think that's a great one.
Okay, let's go now. Ecuador. Rahi, what are you thinking for this?
This is a tough one. Ecuador is a tough one. I think we've got a little known fact that the genie in the bottle herself, Miss Christina Aguilera, has Ecuadorian blood. And so for that reason, we can go no further than Christina Aguilera. She's got to be the most famous Ecuadorian.
Yeah. I think she takes it over Antonio Valencia. Of course, Christina Aguilera is Ecuadorian American, but in this particular case, I think we'll give that to her. Mexico, boys and boys. Mexico. This one's tough. I was thinking maybe Salma Hayek. I mean, I was a big fan of hers growing up, watching movies. Diego Luna, another solid guy from the entertainment world.
There, right?
Canelo.
I even give Lupito Nyong'o an honorable mention, since I do think she spent enough time in there to qualify.
Okay. Who are we going, boys? Where are we going? We going Canelo?
Salma
We
Hayek?
going Salma Hayek? Salma Hayek. I think we
Yeah,
can
Longevity,
agree on that.
longevity, you know.
Mhm.
Longevity. Salma Hayek. And finally, Chris, turn this over to you. If I were to say that historically, there's only one answer, obviously, but
yes,
today
it
and
would
age,
be
yeah.
absolutely Bob Marley. But you know, I think reggae music and dance hall, it's, I'm not gonna say taking a total backseat to the Afro beats, but that I think some of the most influential artists are coming out of Africa now in terms of that music scene. But I will say, with the Olympics coming back up and the potential for world records, a call back to one of our prior shows, Mr. Noah Lyles has been talking about how he is faster than Usain Bolt. So certainly, I think his name will be coming up in these upcoming Paris 2024 Olympics, and because of that, I think he may be trending. I'm hoping he's trending for maintaining the world record, but we'll see what happens there. So I'll go
Usain Bolt
with
That's
the lightning bolt.
fastest,
You see
the fastest man on earth. So yeah, that Usain Bolt is making a comeback into the world. So
yeah.
Cool. So we will continue covering Copa America. Next video, of course, will be Group C preview. If you're enjoying these videos, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And Chris, I'll leave it to you to give some support to the Reggae Boys as we end this group. We're neutral, but Chris, of course, is not. So I'll give it to him.
All right. Shout out to the Reggae Boys. Yeah, best of luck. We'll try and find a way to get through in this next group stage for our Copa America. So good luck, boys.